Let us begin by reading the word problem out loud. It says that 6 less than a number is equivalent to half the number. Find the number. So we'll begin our strategy for problem solving by analyzing the problem. So the first thing we want to identify when analyzing the problem is what it is exactly that we're asked to find. So we want to find the number. So we'll go ahead and assign a variable. So that is, we'll do step 2. So now we're going to go ahead and choose any letter. I'm going to use the letter X, and X is going to represent the number, or it could also be represented as a number. Either one is fine, but we'll just use the number for now. So now, ideally, whenever you see the word the number or a number, we want to replace it with X. So notice that what we see here is a number and the number. So we're going to be using it twice. So now let's go ahead and analyze whatever else we have. 6 less than a number. Now the common mistake here is that people tend to think 6 less. This is a common misconception. It's actually going to be the reverse order. So we're not going to be doing it in this way. This is a big mistake. So the way we're going to do it is actually 6 less than a number. It's going to be a minus 6. And then we're going to have X. And now the term is equivalent to. Equivalent to. This is an indicator of equal sign. And half the number. Well, we know the number is represented by X. And half is, well, half is half. So go ahead and click that. So this is ideally, we're turning all of the English words into math. So now we're going to go ahead and form the correct equation. So now we're going to start off with the equal sign in the middle. And then on the left side, it says 6 less than a number. So it says 6 less than. So what we're going to do is minus 6 from the number, which is represented by X. So now this is the correct format. So again, going back to the question, going back to the sentence, 6 less than a number, things are going to be in the reverse order whenever you see 6 less than. So that actually means that the minus 6 is going to come after the X. And then we're going to have half the number. So there's 2 ways to do it. One way is we could do X divided by 2, which is again the same thing as half. Or we could do 1/2 X as shown. Either one is fine. I'm going to just do X over 2 just because it seems to look a little bit more simpler. So, but yeah, that's going to go ahead and be our equation. So now let us go ahead and solve the equation. So we'll start off by copying it down. X minus 6 is equal to X over 2. So what we want to do is we want to get all the variables on the same side. The problem right now is that we have X on the left and X over 2 on the right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to subtract X minus 2 from both sides. And the reason for that is because it's going to actually eliminate X divided by 2 on the right hand side. So we're going to end up with X minus 6 is equal to X over 2. So subtracting X over 2 from both sides, we end up with 0 on the right because we're going to have an X minus 2 minus an X minus 2. So it's going to leave us with a 0. Then I'm just going to go ahead and rearrange the order to get the X's close to one another. So we have a positive X. And then we have an X over 2. Then we have a minus 6. So what I want to do here is I want to combine the X minus the X over 2. Now I can't combine them right now because they don't have the same denominator. X has a denominator of 1 and X over 2 has a denominator of 2. So what we have to do is we have to multiply by the LCD. In this case, the LCD is going to be 2. So we're going to multiply by 2 over 2, which is ideally 1. So 2 over 2 is the same thing as 1, so we're multiplying by 1, which in essence, we're not really changing anything when we multiply by this number. So now let's go ahead and simplify that down. So then that's going to give us a 2x over 2 minus x over 2 minus 6 is equal to 0. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to get all the variables on one side and only the variables. So I'm going to have to eliminate that minus 6. The only way to do so is by adding 6 to both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and plus 6. Not just to one side, but to both sides. So then what's that going to give us? It's going to give us a 6 on the right. And then on the left, the minus 6 and the plus 6 simplify out. So all we really have to do is combine these two variables. So now we have a 2x over 2 minus an x over 2. Since they have the same denominator, we could combine the numerators. So it's going to leave us with 2x minus x over 2. So we have a 2x minus an x. So that's going to leave us with 1x, or just x in the numerator. And we still have a 2 in the denominator. And that's equal to 6. So it's going to be what we're left with, x over 2 equals 6. Now we want to get rid of the division of 2. The only way to do so is by the opposite operation, which is multiply by 2. So then the 2 simplify out, and we're left with x. And then 6 times 2 is equal to 12. So that's going to go ahead and be our solution. So we're going to go ahead and state the conclusion. Since we were asked to find the number, we're going to say simply that the number is 12. So there we go. So now the last thing is we're going to have to go ahead and check the result. So we'll go ahead and start off with the original equation, which is going to be x minus 6 is equal to x divided by 2. However, we now know that the value of x is 12, so we're going to substitute that in for x. So we're going to have 12 minus 6 is equal to 12 divided by 2. So on the left-hand side, we're going to have 12 minus 6. That's going to leave us with 6. On the right-hand side, we'll have 12 divided by 2, which is also 6. So this verifies that our solution is correct.